Caleb Beach was the first settler in Winchester around 1750. His family's fireplace and chimney were moved to the Winchester Historical Site and stand there to this day. Recently, the maintenance of the Danbury Quarter Cemetery in Winchester was brought into question by the town historian Benjamin Thomas. The cemetery will be added to a long list of town structures needing maintenance and attention. This inspired me to write new lyrics to an old song. I call the resulting lament the Lament of Caleb Beach.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Old cemetery is neglected by our own, old cemetery laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Old cemetery headed for the old graveyard, old cemetery laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Town buildings are neglected by our own, town buildings laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town buildings headed for the old graveyard, town buildings laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
School buildings are neglected by our own, school buildings laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? School buildings headed for the old graveyard, school buildings laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Town hall neglected by our own, town hall laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town hall is headed for the old graveyard, town hall laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
The firehouse is neglected by our own, the firehouse is laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Firehouse headed for the old graveyard, the firehouse is laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
The test scores are neglected by our own, test scores laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Test scores headed for the old graveyard, test scores laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
The police station's neglected by our own, police station laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Police station headed for the old graveyard, police station laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the
neglected by our own. Highland Lake laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Highland Lake headed for the old graveyard. Highland Lake laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Town monuments neglected by our own. Town monuments laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town monuments headed for the old graveyard. Town monuments laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Town revenue neglected by our own. Town revenue laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town revenue's headed for the old graveyard. Town revenue laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Caleb shouted from the sky, you can earn more revenue if you try, then Winsted won't be laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now it ain't hard to rescue Winsted from the old graveyard. Revenue is coming in the wind.
Caleb shouted from the sky, you can earn more revenue if you try, then Winsted won't be laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now it ain't hard to rescue Winsted from the old graveyard. Revenue is coming in the wind.
Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. That was an interesting song. I'm going to play it again at the end of the program, about 10 minutes before the end, in case anybody arrived late and wants to hear it from the beginning. The pictures tonight, I have several pictures. The original picture that you saw while the song was playing was the original chimney of the Caleb Beach home that has since been moved to Winchester Center. And thank you to John Grappo for doing that a few years back. This chimney is seen sitting on the John Monetto State Park, which is on 263. That's where the original Caleb Beach home was. This week, Joyce and I tried unsuccessfully to find the Danbury Quarter Cemetery in an attempt to take a few color pictures for this program. It proved too difficult for us to find it on our own, so we headed home without the pictures to try again some other time. Then I called and visited the town historian, Dr. Benjamin Thomas, a very knowledgeable and interesting person, now living in a house in Winchester Town Center, dated 1776. Dr. Thomas let me copy the pictures of the house and chimney from old postcards. We'll be showing the house at the end of the show when we replay the song. He was very informative about the history of Caleb Beach, Winchester Center, and the Danbury Quarter and its cemetery. In the early days, Danbury Quarter was a quite active little community. For that, I am grateful. I will discuss this cemetery in greater detail at a later date after I do more research. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. What I've learned about Danbury Quarter and its cemetery to date is very interesting. One of the major problems with the cemetery has been the constant vandalism over the years because of its extremely remote location. Dr. Thomas is forming a Danbury Quarter Cemetery Commission of 5 to 7 members in an attempt to address some of the major and minor problems. If anyone is interested in joining this commission, please contact Dr. Thomas at his home in Winchester. Tonight, I will try to raise the level of this selectmen meeting reporting that I do to a higher level, to leave more time in the future for management philosophy as we enter into the final year of this program in another week or so. This program will end on or before the 2009 local election. I established this program to help people learn how to manage the town in a more or less profitable way, and I think by the end of next year I'll have exhausted my advice and I won't be able to give you any more, so there's no sense being on every week. If this group of selectmen gets reelected, you won't need me. If the other group, the opposing group gets elected, they won't listen to me, so there won't be no sense me being on any longer. I will be covering the meetings, very important points only, and not in as much detail as I have in the past. It looks as if my early forecast of micromanagement of the town manager by the minority selectmen is here to stay. And I'm told that you can spot it for yourselves by most people, so there's no longer a need for me to keep pointing it out as often as I have been in the past. Everybody says it's a waste of time, we can see it for ourselves. So now I'd like to just clean up a couple of things from last week, if we can go to here. Last week we had the pictures a little backwards, and that was pointed out to me by a couple people. William H. Phelps was the first warden of Winstead in 1858. And this is a picture of William H. Phelps. I think I got this from, I don't even know where I got it, but I got it from one of the history books around here somewhere. And probably from Tony Canavo, actually, because I was down there hunting through his books. The first mayor of Winstead, as I mentioned last week, he was actually in from 1921 to 1923. We didn't start having mayors till till 1933. We didn't start having mayors till 1931. So he was a mayor for a year or so, a little more, and then he passed away while in office, and somebody else took his place as an interim, and then we had another mayor selectman elected, and that was it. But this is his picture, so just wanted to correct that from last week, so there's no confusion about that. Now, as far as the agenda is concerned, for tonight, you heard the lament of Caleb Beach, the first settler in 1750 in Winchester. At that time, that part where he lived was actually in Torrington. And there were some swaps made here and there, and in the end, actually it was in Winchester, and then later it was sold to Torrington. So where his original house was is no longer in Winchester. That's the John Minetto State Park. It's in Torrington. I already went through the comments. There'll be a couple notices. Last week I kind of skipped through the notices and budget update because I was so excited about talking about the mayor and the town manager situation. Then there'll be the selectmen meeting from this week, abbreviated version, and then again I will play the lament of Caleb Beach for those who didn't see the beginning of the program. Notices. Next week I will be presenting the third quarterly review of voting records for May 6th through 2008 through August 6th, 2008 of this group of selectmen. I will also include totals for the first 3 quarters of this administration. If you are interested, watch or record the program at 8 p.m. on Thursday, September 11th, 2008, on Channel 13, this channel we're on right now, cable, and pass the information on to any other interested parties. This is baseball season now, so we never know who's going to be watching the program, but I encourage everybody to record it, watch it later, or have a friend record it so you can look on it when the baseball game's over. Don't forget to vote on Saturday, September 6th, 2008, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Pearson School. This is on the latest budget. The budget, as it stands now, we'll be voting on it in 2 more days. The third 2008-2009 town budget referendum will be held on Saturday, September 6, 2008, at the Pearson School. The proposed tax increase, 0.71 mils, or 2.88%, is 0.71 mils, or 2.88%. So if this budget passes, you will have to pay another tax bill of 2.88% on top of what you paid already a month or 2 ago. The new mill rate will be the current mill rate, 24.67, that you were billed on just a few weeks back, plus the 0.71 mil if it gets approved on Saturday. So your total mill rate will then be 25.38 mils for 2008-2009. Now I'm going to go to the review of the selectmen meeting, and this is a shortened down version that I will be doing for the rest of the year. I might come back with a few of the other things, a major status board and all, once every other month or 2 if something happens. Otherwise, we move on. So on September 2nd, we had a selectmen meeting. Senator Selectman Capabianca had an excused absence. There was a vote to reappoint Keith Wilson, a Republican, to the Torrington Area Health Commission. The motion was by Selectman Ham, second by Selectman Liskin, unanimous. There were only 6 people at the meeting, so unanimous was 6, absent Selectman Capabianca. Number 200. This year to date, plus or minus, what percent or 2, vote to appoint William Berlinski, a Republican, to the Economic Development Commission. Motion, Selectman Ham, second, Selectman Berlinski, and then there were 5 positive votes, and there were 2 votes against. I'm sorry, 1 vote against. Gene Berlinski recused himself from the vote. So let's see, who's missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor, 1 recused. There were no votes against. 1 recused, Gene Berlinski, and absent Selectman Capabianca. So it looks like that was a unanimous decision, with the exception of Gene Berlinski, who recused himself because it was his brother, William, that was put on the Economic Development Commission. The next vote was to appoint Mary Shea, a Democrat, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The motion was made by a Republican, Selectman Liskin, seconded by a Republican, Selectman Ham, and the vote, this is very interesting, the vote was yes 4, no 2. And the people who voted no were both Democrats. Now, as you saw on the previous sheet, Mary Shea is a Democrat. And one of the things I want to point out to you is that when they were running for election, the Democrats, they kind of shunned Mary Shea and Matthew Brennan, in my opinion. I promoted Matthew Brennan on my show because I thought he was acted more in a business manner than perhaps the other Democrats did. And but Mary Shea and Matthew Brennan were not really encouraged by their own party. Now, the Republicans have taken a liking to Mary Shea. They like Mary Shea. They think she's very good and well-balanced. So they voted her onto the Ethics Committee, and I think there the vote was 4-2 as well. And they nominated her and put her on the Ethics Committee. And now they put her on this committee, commission, and that's very good for the Democrats because she's young, she's in her early 20s, she has a lot of knowledge, she's not afraid to speak up, she just doesn't follow the pack, and I think she's got a very, very bright future ahead of her for the Democratic Party. if they ever embrace her. That's, again, my opinion. So it was 4-2, and then the noes were Selectman Perez and Selectman Ronzullo. I got a mistake here. It wasn't unanimous. That should be crossed off. Absent, Selectman Capabianca. Vote to instruct the town manager, Keith Robbins, to determine which parcels of town-owned land are needed for the benefit of the community, and the department heads, benefit of the community and the department heads, and identify the remaining parcels as to what they are, so we can see if we want to sell them or not. There's a purpose for that. It was kind of left off there in the minutes. I got these minutes again from the town hall, the wording. So I want to say something about both of these. Matter of fact, let me just finish this first, and I'll talk about them both. The motion was by Selectman Liskin, second, Selectman Ronzullo, and the vote was unanimous. Absent was Selectman Capabianca. Now, both of these things we talked about so far on the Selectmen meeting are very important. The Economic Development Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals are very important boards. And this, as I read it, is the Republicans' attempt to help try to balance these boards. Now, when we say balance the boards, we don't mean that Republican versus Democrat versus Independent, because each of those parties had, or even unaffiliated, like I am, each of those parties and the unaffiliateds, even though they have a label attached to them or belong to a political party, they think differently along the normal distribution curve. So what the Republicans are trying to do now is balance these commissions while they're in office, the Republicans, the businessmen, Republicans, they're trying to balance these commissions such that they're balanced from a thought viewpoint, how things should be done, not necessarily from a political viewpoint. I wanted to make that point. Now, as far as selling the land is concerned, it was brought to our attention a few weeks ago by Jay Case at one of the land sale special town meetings that the town has about $8 million in land that the town owns. Now, that $8 million is in question. People have to look at it and see whether it's appraised value or it's or what value it is, and see if it's really $8 million. Certain buildings have to be excluded from that $8 million. For example, the town hall, the fire department, and, the town owns buildings, and you know, the public works building down there and things like that. So they have to be factored out. They wouldn't be for sale. And then they have to look at what's left of all that land and see what is it the town can use for future needs, what is it that the town thinks it will need for future needs and present needs, and then it needs to try to decide whether or not we can sell some of this land and get it on the tax rolls, because that will produce a lot of tax revenue. Now, there is an argument also as to how much tax revenue that will produce. And we don't know for sure yet, but what we need to do is get in there and have a good look at it, and then try to see in black and white, mathematically, what is the benefit and what is not a benefit. But one thing is for certain: no matter what a piece of property is worth, it's better on the tax rolls if the town doesn't need it for future needs. And there's always a possibility, of course, of the town buying property back in the future if it needs it, once it gets to be financially responsible. So that I wanted to point out. That's a very important, and you'll see more of that as we go through the meeting tonight. The next vote was not, it gets a little tricky in here on these votes now. I think they all came out all right in the end, but there's a little politicking going on here by the minority party, in my opinion. But there was a vote not to sell the property located on Thomas Road, lots 107 through 110, and 165. The motion was by Selectman Ranzullo and Selectman Perez, the minority selectman. They voted yes, together with Selectman Liskin, Republican, and the other 3 Republicans that were attending the meeting voted no. So that motion failed. So they were trying to say, let's not sell the property. The motion failed, so that means they can sell the property. Absent was Selectman Capabianca. The next vote was to table the sale of town-owned property at Norwood Road, lots 107 through 110 and 165 again, until we receive a report back from the town manager, Keith Robbins, regarding the use of the town-owned land. That motion was made by Selectman Liskin, second by Selectman Ham, and that was voted to yes to table it, no not to table it, so they didn't table it. Selectman Capabianca was absent, so the motion failed. The next vote was a vote not to sell the property located on Norwood Road, lots 107, 110, and 165. 107 through 110 and 165. The motion was Selectman Ranzullo, second, Selectman Perez, the minority, 2 selectmen. And the vote not to sell received 2 yes votes and 4 no votes, the 4 Republicans that were there. So absent was Selectman Capabianca, and that motion failed. So again, they were able to sell this property. That motion failed. So back we come with another vote to sell the property located on Norwood Road, lots 107, 110, and I think it's supposed to be 165 there. I don't know, I got the wrong number on there. But so the motion was Selectman Berlinski, second Selectman Ham, and in the end, I don't know what happened there. Absent was Selectman, I got these out of place, that's it. Absent Selectman Capabianca, and absent Selectman Capabianca. Vote on the original motion to sell the lots located on Norwood Road, lots 107 through 110 and 165. This time, this is a vote to sell the property, the original motion. We had a few motions in between that. Yes for the Republicans, no to the minority. So that was voted to sell that property. I guess I missed one slide, but that's all right. You get the point on that. It's kind of complex in that whole thing, but basically the Republicans are trying to sell property, and for one reason or another, the minority doesn't want to sell the property unless it has certain restrictions placed on it. Now, the thing I skipped before was there was a motion before that was done to sell the property. There was a vote to amend the motion to include when the bids are sent out that the minimum amount to sell will be no less than the appraised amount. And that was a unanimous vote of everybody there, 6 people. And then they did the vote to sell the property, and the vote was yes, we will sell the property. Now, I want to say a thing here, and that is that I personally don't agree. I haven't totally made up my mind yet that it's good to put this appraised amount rider on here, because the appraised amounts go up and down. Right now, they're going down. So what we have on our books may or may not be the accurate appraised value for any given time in the next year or two if property values are decreasing. So there could be another way to approach that. For example, ask the buyers to submit 3 appraisals of their own before they make a bid on the property. But so I don't totally agree with that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I want to think about it some more. There are other ways to do this that are more fair to the people who buy the property. The next is a vote to resolve the town manager, Keith Robbins, be and hereby is authorized to act on behalf of the town of Winchester in executing a memorandum of understanding with the state of Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for participation in the 2009 Emergency Management Performance Grant Program. Motion Ham, Selectman Berlinski, unanimous 6, absent Capabianca. Now, this is another important one. This is a vote to authorize the town manager, Keith Robbins, to form a creating commission for space needs and for police and fire facilities. This immediately got into an argument, or the discussion rather, let's not use the word argument, discussion about the old bond issue and should we have a bigger commission and should we do more things and blah, blah, blah. But basically, I think they're doing exactly the right thing here. What they're doing is the town manager will get together with his staff and he will decide with his staff and any other counsel they can get from anybody that might be willing to discuss it with them, the needs for the fire department, space needs for fire department and police department for the future. This is apolitical. That's the town manager and his staff. And they will figure out what it is they need. They will look at it as to what the time frame should be and the cost should be. And when they get all that done and they have the draft of some apolitical plan, then they will go to the selectmen and they'll go over it with the selectmen, and from then on it will be a joint cooperation between the town manager and the selectmen. So I think this is absolutely the right way to go. It's an evolutionary approach. It's apolitical, and what it is exactly what the businessmen promised before they were elected, that they would take a slower, more efficient, closer look at the police and fire station and the schools, and they would take a slower evolutionary approach that perhaps the town can't afford. Now, there's no guarantee the town can afford anything they come up with, but this is an approach to take a business-like approach to it, not a bureaucratic or socialistic approach to solving this problem. The motion was made by Selectman Fracasso, seconded by Selectman Ham. Motion by Selectman there was a lot of discussion, and finally Selectman Liskin asked to move the question. The vote was taken, and was yes, the 4 businessmen that were present, no, the 2 minority selectmen that were present, and the motion did pass. So the town manager will get with his staff, as he should, and look into the space needs for the police and fire department. And absent was Selectman Capabianca. The vote on the original motion was yes, 4, and no, 2. Selectman Perez and Selectman Renzullo voting no. And the motion passed. Absent Selectman Capabianca. So now, just in this little selectman meeting here that I talked to you about, the meeting went on for an hour. I left out a lot of parts of it that I didn't think were germane. But this is all important stuff here. It's dealing with getting the boards balanced, the commissions and boards balanced. It's dealing with selling property the town owns that would perhaps will be better off on the tax rolls. And it deals with looking into the needs of the fire and police department in an apolitical, business-like manner, trying to come up with a solution that everybody will be happy with, including the taxpayers. So again, red for complete, blue in progress, yellow not yet started. Total policy to date, 194, 14 no. All of them this week were policy discussions, and 93% from the election to now. Meeting businesslike, another yes, very businesslike. There were some differences of opinion. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of stuff that there was a 15-minute presentation that should have been about 4 minutes, but or not at all. So it was not the most efficient meeting, but it was very businesslike, and there was some confusion over the moving of the motion, but that's okay. That's allowed by Robert's Rules of Order. My advice there to people who don't want their motions moved is to say them succinctly. And I think some of these educators we have in town that I hear on TV wouldn't pass a poetry course, because, in my opinion, because they can't speak sentences. They have to speak in paragraphs and repeat themselves over and over again. So not my cup of tea. That's not the way to do things. Town Manager's Report, September 2nd, 2008. A good report again. Everything that was on the agenda was put on by the town manager. There were a couple things added during the meeting by the minority again, but everything else was put on by the town manager. The job description, salary and benefit agreements that I've said in past programs he was working on, that's one of his goals and objectives, is progressing. He's got some information in from the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, and he's working on that. And he started to review our existing job descriptions and has started to update them along with their salary and benefit package. Now remember, this is just his direct reports and non-union management, that people that are on salary and benefit packages. So the town manager continues to work every day with the Board of Education as one cohesive unit in an effort to be as efficient as practical, especially sharing expenses wherever possible. School has now started, according to the town manager, and it was an uneventful start. The posting for the recreation director position expired officially on Friday, August 29, 2008. Any correspondence post marked on or before the 29th, that was last Friday, and received on September 2nd or 3rd at the post office box will be eligible, and the civil service will begin to review the documents. They're probably doing that already. The town manager had no idea how many applications have been received to date because the person who collects them was either out ill or on holiday, but will return on, has returned actually now by the 3rd, so they should have a pretty good idea. I did call there today, and they didn't know exactly yet. I think they know, but there wasn't anybody there who could tell us, so I didn't know the number. Next week, we'll know. The skate park materials have arrived, work has started, and should take a few days. The town manager is not ready to give a time frame for reopening the park, but work is proceeding very well. Planning and zoning, this is a very important point here, very important. Planning and zoning reviewed by the town manager. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't start. A corridor update to the POCD Route 800 corridor. A corridor design study for the Enterprise Corridor, Raleigh Street to Torrington, has been received from the vendor. They're in New Haven, and they're called TPA Design Group. By the town planner, and planning and zoning has, it's been given to the planning and zoning and reviewed by the town manager and distributed to the selectmen in their packet. This is just the beginning of this thing. A group will begin to look at the development potential for lots they have studied under present zoning. That's in the report. I got a copy of the report, took a look at it. They will ask if this is the kind of development that the commission is comfortable with. They will consider discussing the development potential with current property owners. For example, what are current owners' plans to develop their property once the gravel is gone. They also will discuss the strategy for implementing the study findings into the POCD. So here we have this TPA group hired by the town with the money that the present businessman gave them, and have in the next budget another $15,000, and the grant they're getting for $20,000. So they are in the process of moving along with the plan for the Enterprise Corridor that they want to then implement into the POCD, one form or another, and that's really good news for our town because things are moving along. It shows that the evolutionary approach works and that we can get things going, and this evolutionary approach will point out some problems in our town's bookkeeping, so to speak, here, and they will get resolved quicker than if we weren't taking an evolutionary approach, and everybody will be happy. Now remember, the water and sewer, that's good. That plan is being done by the Water and Sewer Commission, and that will be given to this group if it hasn't been already, and also to planning and zoning, and the planning director, and the selectmen, and the town manager, and then eventually it will go to the state as our plan for water and sewer along that corridor, as well as perhaps the rest of the town. A very productive meeting was held with the town manager, the director of planning, and Lambert K. Lambert K. is working on the loan agreement for the cleanup of the property. They are also discussing remediation with the Department of Environmental Protection, that's the DEP, as well as acquiring estimates for securing the building. Now remember, Lambert K. is the building in the town that we're trying to sell to an interested party, and they're doing all their homework before the sale is complete for the cleanup and getting their loans and doing that kind of stuff. So the town's working very closely with them, and that would be good for our town, because then we'll get that building restored and onto a higher way onto the tax rolls. Right now it is not a tax rolls at all because it's still owned by the town until this sale is finalized, and then we won't get the higher tax money, of course, until they refurbish the building. The East End Park, curbing has arrived, and there's a possibility of somewhere around November, December, maybe a little longer for that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that the maintenance cost estimation for the planning fields offered by the developer is difficult to calculate. This was asked for by one of the selectmen, and it's difficult to calculate because only a location map is available to work with. Once a construction document is available, an analysis can be done. Now, if you remember, the developer of the large projects that are going to benefit us so much revenue-wise on the hills along the corridor between Winsted and Torrington has offered to some recreational playing fields should his next project be approved. So the town manager was asked to look into that and see what would our maintenance costs be and what would be involved for the town if we accepted that gift and ended up having to do the maintenance. The town manager will research various organizations for sample specifications for similar playing fields. So he's going to try to see if he can do some work in advance of getting these final drawings from the developer after or shortly before the project is approved or whenever they do happen. He'll be doing some homework, looking around to recreational facilities around the state and elsewhere to see if he can get any leads from them on how to plan this thing for us. There is no doubt, according to the town manager, that everybody wants these playing fields, and that it's just a question of now finding out exactly what they'll be and how much it will cost to maintain them. A short meeting was held on site at Tetros Pond. That's the pond that is in need of some repairs to the dam. So there was a short meeting held on site at Tetros Pond. The repairs needed will begin soon. An inland wetlands permit will be necessary to repair the dam. So what you see here now, all I put up here this week was what I thought were the most important things that happened at the Selectmen this weekend. And what I'm trying to do over my last year here is focus on getting revenue for the town of Winchester, additional taxpayers, and additional industry, additional retail operations, additional what I would call resort things like the Wall of America or perhaps the Tort Museum or anything else like that, that although they wouldn't pay taxes much themselves because they would be tax-free organizations, they would bring a lot of people to town that would buy things here and eat in our restaurants and go to our theaters and frequent our stores and shops and things like that. So they would be very beneficial to our town. Now, a new thing has come up over the last couple of weeks, which I mentioned 4 years ago to some of the selectmen to look into, and nothing ever came of it. But any land that we have in town, if it's worth a lot of money, and we'll bring, if we sell it, don't need it and sell it, and it will bring in extra taxes to us, then we should be looking into that. And you see it by this program today that we are. The other thing you see by this program today is that we are still working on getting these developments into town. We're working on this Route 8 corridor. We're working on the water and sewer with the Water and Sewer Commission to get up to the development properties. That's moving along, although we didn't report it this week. That's happening in the background. Those things will come together in so many months, and then we'll be able to get that. Meanwhile, the developer has to work on getting his second permit from Planning and Zoning, which seems to be moving along pretty well. The town is cooperating there with the developer and vice versa to try to get an approval for a smaller number of condos there. And then that's moving along fairly well. If we can get some of this land sold, that's excellent. So that's what I'm kind of going to be concentrating on here. And also, we do need to get these commission balanced so that we take what I would call more objective looks at some of these developers that come to town, and they help us. So we want to kind of get extra additional revenue one way or the other. We work on many things in parallel, and then we want to use the money to solve a lot of these wants and needs that I mentioned in the song that my wife Joyce and I sang this evening. So that all continues to happen. This is a perfect example this week of actions going in the right direction, things starting to move, and that over time, 5, maybe 10 years, maybe we'll be able to finance a lot of this work that we have to do in this town without too much additional burden on the existing taxpayers. With that, we are now going to put up the picture of Caleb Beach's home that was on the Moneto site, originally in Winchester, now in Torrington. It's long gone. This came from a postcard, but this is a picture of it, and we will repeat the lament of Caleb Beach. See you next week for the quarterly review.
Caleb Beach was the first settler in Winchester around 1750. His family's fireplace and chimney were moved to the Winchester Historical Site and stand there to this day. Recently, the maintenance of the Danbury Quarter Cemetery in Winchester was brought into question by the town historian Benjamin Thomas. The cemetery will be added to a long list of town structures needing maintenance and attention. This inspired me to write new lyrics to an old song. I call the resulting lament the Lament of Caleb Beach.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Old cemetery is neglected by our own, old cemetery laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard, old cemetery headed for the old graveyard, old cemetery laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
Town buildings are neglected by our own, town buildings laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town buildings headed for the old graveyard, town buildings laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winsted doing to our home? Winsted laying in the wind, Winsted laying in the wind.
School buildings are neglected by our own, school buildings laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? School buildings headed for the old graveyard. School buildings laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
Town hall neglected by our own. Town hall laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town hall is headed for the old graveyard. Town hall laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
The firehouse is neglected by our own. The firehouse is laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Firehouse headed for the old graveyard. The firehouse is laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
The test scores are neglected by our own. Test scores laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Test scores headed for the old graveyard. Test scores laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
The police station's neglected by our own. Police station laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Police station headed for the old graveyard. Police station laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
Highland Lake's neglected by our own. Highland Lake laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Highland Lake headed for the old graveyard. Highland Lake laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
Town monuments neglected by our own. Town monuments laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town monuments headed for the old graveyard. Town monuments laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
Town revenue neglected by our own. Town revenue laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now ain't it hard? Town revenue's headed for the old graveyard. Town revenue laying in the wind.
Caleb Beach did weep, Caleb Beach did moan. What is Winstead doing to our home? Winstead laying in the wind, Winstead laying in the wind.
Caleb shouted from the sky, you can earn more revenue if you try, then Winstead won't be laying in the wind. Oh, kind friends, now it ain't hard to rescue Winstead from the old graveyard. Revenue is coming in the wind.
Caleb shouted from the sky, you can earn more revenue if you try, then Winstead won't be laying in the wind. Oh, kind friend. funds, now it ain't hard to rescue Winsted from the old graveyard. Revenue is coming in the wind.
The voters of the town of Winchester have recently turned down the selectmen's third attempt to pass a budget for this fiscal year. We will be at least 3 months into the fiscal year before a budget is passed. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? The budget has thrice been denied. Some will ask what we decrease the budget. Now some will ask that we decrease the budget. Now some will ask that we decrease the budget for a new budget to pass. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? If we want a fourth budget to pass. Others suggest that we increase the budget. Now others suggest that we increase the budget. Now others suggest that we increase the budget to get a fourth budget to pass. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? A new budget is long overdue. Some suggest that we borrow more money. Now some suggest that we borrow more money. Now some suggest that we borrow more money and place the town further in debt. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? The new budget will be coming soon. Others suggest that we need some more revenue. Others suggest that we need some more revenue. Others suggest that we need some more revenue to help the town shoulder the load. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Let's increase the revenue soon.